Poll question. Does Tyler Myers last the season as a Vancouver Canuck? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres and Price on Twitter or YouTube. Here he is. Joins us Thursdays from the Province and Post Media, Mr. Patrick Johnston. How are you?
Gentlemen, good morning. Hello. Hi. Yes.
Will you last the season as a Canuck media member?
I think so.
Yeah? Okay.
I
was more thinking about the exasperation of this team more than anything else.
I have,
by the way,
learned not to make predictions on media career futures.
Yeah. That's not where I was going.
Let's go a different direction, please.
I was going in. Can you handle it for the years more than?
I mean, come on.
We've been through the tough stuff. Yes,
I handled the COVID season, man. Come on.
Right.
This
Patrick's
team's
like the U.S. Postal Service through sleet, through hail, through whatever.
Exactly.
He'll be there.
We were just talking about the division kind of changing. The Alberta team is finding legs a little bit to some degree, particularly Edmonton recently.
Yeah.
And the fact that this team, has percolated okay. 500 for a 10-game stretch is not the end of the world.
No.
But when you are playing like that, you can't really then start to lose games back to back to back.
No.
Never have I thought this would be a big game, but this is kind of a big game just for the math of it all, I think.
Yeah, I think so. We're talking about Minnesota, obviously.
That's right,
yeah. I would say so. I think you're right on the point of you don't want to go on any runs, especially not negative.
Yes.
The truth is that they've set themselves up well. And we said this, I think, at the end of October or middle of November. Like, they could afford, I guess it was coming into American Thanksgiving. They could afford to go 500 basically the rest of the way. And with the amount of hockey they've been playing, they were playing every other day in November, essentially the same pattern right now, right up till Christmas. The run of games, the sort of 20, they're going to be playing 26 games in, 54 days or something like that. That's a lot of hockey. There's not a lot of time to recuperate. That's hard. And now we're in the really hard part of it all. So to me, the challenge is just getting yourselves through to Christmas, getting yourself through 500. You're going to win and then lose and then win and then lose. And as long as that's the pattern, you're going to be fine because you've already built yourself as a base. And then, it is that second half. The money is to be made in the second half. And you're exactly right, Blake. Like, you do not want to start losing 2, 3, certainly not 4 games in a row. And I don't think there's necessarily any risk of this because there's still enough give in the schedule with some of the opponents. Obviously, seems like the Sharks have pulled up their socks a little bit. But the Canucks still can score. They're not going to necessarily keep scoring quite the way they've scored, but they're still going to keep scoring. Their goaltending is still going to be pretty good. I think everybody's noted this, but 3 of those goals on Tuesday night were absolutely atrocious. And that cannot become a pattern because then they're going to be in trouble.
Where are you on Kuzmenko right now? You still have faith in him? Do you still have faith he's going to work with Tocchet? And do you think they're regretting not trading him at last year's deadline?
Well, I was joking with someone about this. I said, there was that thing on the table. It was the option of what was better, draft pick or Kuzmenko. And I think, maybe if you're saying draft pick now, you're not wrong. I still like the player. I still like the finish. There is a real obvious. Everyone knows. Everyone talked about it yesterday. I sort of sat there and thinking, is there something else to write? But everyone again nailed it. Like, this is a coach that's really frustrated with a player. The style of player that he is. I mean, I don't think any of that's changed, which brings me back a little bit to, I think I was a little surprised that they jumped so quickly on re-signing him. I mean, I at the time said it's fine. He's a fun player. We should celebrate fun things. And I still think he's a fun player. I think that there needs to be something in between. He's not as bad a shooter as he's been. I mean, if he starts scoring goals, then it becomes less of an issue, right? Like, if he's putting the puck in the net and he's doing fine. I mean, all the numbers underneath are fine. He's been fine with Pettersson. The problem is when he's been away with Pettersson, I mean, everything confirms what your instincts are, which was that he is not a two-way player. The one thing that I think I am a little concerned about, and I do look at NHL Edge stats with some caution, but you can look carefully at it. And it is pretty clear that Kuzmenko is one of the slower players in the league. And in terms of foot speed, in terms of hands, he's one of the better sets of hands in the league. I mean, we saw that last year. And so does that present a problem with how this team is trying to play? If you simply can't get in there, well, if you're not going to be able to forecheck, I mean, they're asking these guys to make smart, direct decisions. And if you're not playing smart, direct, even if you're not the first guy in, that becomes a problem. And certainly we've heard the exasperation in Tocchet. I don't think this obviously can't continue like this, because at a certain point, it's going to become a discussion point in the room. That the players are gonna be like, what the heck's going on with Kuzi? What the heck's going on with Talk? And that is not something you want ever to happen in your team.
I almost wonder if Niels Höglander's success is impacting Kuzmenko's report card a little bit, because I think Tocchet's watching Höglander barrel into a forecheck, use his body, rattle the end boards, dislodge the puck, create turnovers, and he's like, why aren't you looking like that? And he is a bowling ball. Like, he's not a slight player. Kuzmenko could play like Höglander. Back checking is way more annoying than forechecking, because the puck's involved here. Like, and you're in the offensive zone. Like, I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand the laziness of the back check. I get why guys get lulled into it. The forecheck, no, it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is, like Höglander, I don't think he's not a tearaway, breakaway specialist kind of speed, but the velocity he is able to get himself up to, it tells the story. And it goes back to, I've said this so many times, but he is literally the player that he is now, I think, finally literally the player that Judd Brackett said he thought he would be when they literally drafted him that day, 2019 in Vancouver. Brackett was practically, he couldn't even sit down. He was so excited about Höglander. He said, this guy has a motor. This guy has the best hands in the draft. And we've seen Höglander, he's turned himself into a useful finisher. Now, he, like 3 or 4 other players, is shooting about double his career shooting percentage. So that's not going to continue. But he's putting himself in the spots to score. And like you said, he is that bowling ball. He's got the motor. His feet keep moving. They never stop. And he gets in on the puck. And it so much of what he's doing comes back to everything that I think Tocchet and his staff are trying to put in place, which is the comparison I made when I was talking to Tyler Myers about it last week, when we were trying to sort of think about how you succeed in this system. It's like you're stepping into the picture. The picture's already taken. Like, everything is where it's supposed to be, and you step in and you just know where everything's going to be, and you don't have to, there's no processing required. And you just go. And that's many ways, I think the implications, that is what the best teams are doing. I mean, you look at Vegas. The success of Vegas is that they are very much the team that is quote unquote predictable, right? The players all know what each other are doing. They don't even have to think about it. They just look, the guy's there, and Höglander has become that kind of player. And I think that's the thing that I think in the end, that is what you're trying to dial in with on Kuzmenko, is that you're trying to get him into the picture and just to sort of appreciate the overall setup of things. That when he plays with Pettersson, there is the best players, you think about the great goals, the great passes, right? Like, you're like, oh, how did he see that? Well, he just knew, because he was familiar with the player. So much of the great moments happen because players just have that instinct for each other. Not necessarily Sedin level, but the last year, Kuzmenko and Pettersson had such a partnership, and it worked so well. And I think they just need to get back to that within this overall structure that's trying to be established.
What do you make of the Twin Towers pair, Myers and Zadorov? And Myers, do you think he lasts the season with the Canucks?
Well, first of all, on that, I mean, we've been talking about that for almost, I think, since the moment that Jim Rutherford arrived. By the way, tomorrow is the 2nd anniversary of the arrival of Jim Rutherford.
You'll remember it happened after a worldwide search for the best hockey executive that lasted somewhere in the vicinity of 48 to 72 hours.
Remember the committee? There was going to be a committee. Anyway,
for a moment there, you actually thought Stan Smeel was going to have his hands on the wheels, and then Francesco conducted the global search and found Rutherford.
Anyway, listen, Myers has got that 10 team, no trade. He likes it here. He is sort of his family likes it here. They're, it's a place they chose to come to. I don't think you're convincing him to go play for San Jose or Chicago or anywhere that's probably already on his list. And I certainly think I think the Canucks have tried. And so yeah, I'm skeptical that happens. Obviously, it would be a big achievement for this team to get any cap space relief by moving on from Myers. As for the pairing, I mean, Zadorov's a fun player. I that was my immediate reaction the first moment I heard them talk. I heard it, I think last summer, the first time I heard that Zadorov was on the radar. And obviously he is a well-suited third pairing defenseman. He is going to make some mistakes. But he's going to hit guys. He loves getting up the ice. He's a great skater. I think it's a partnership that could work. I mean, Myers, when he's been playing on the third pair this season, has been fine, right? Like, it's when you're not asking him to deal with top end opposition. It's when you're asking him to deal with the third and fourth lines, and there is a bit of give in what he's facing. So, as a partnership, I think it works fine. If they do sign Ethan Bear, then I think there's an interesting question what his role in the lineup then becomes. And then, yeah, I mean, if all of a sudden he's the seventh defenseman, I think maybe you are thinking about trying to move on from that, because that's a woefully inefficient use of cap space. But you could do a lot worse with him as your seventh defenseman, I suppose.
Can I ask you this? So this 10-team no trade list, that kicked in July 1st, 2022.
Yeah.
So almost a year and a half ago now.
Yeah.
He submits the list that day and it's static. There is no changing.
No, my understanding. Yeah. And my understanding is you can actually fiddle with it if you want.
I thought it was the start of every year you submit.
I think you have to, you can, like, certainly from the Senators mess, one of the understandings that I have is that you can ask a player, what's your list? What's it right now? Would you like to change it? It can be changed. Right. Yeah. In general, you get an updated list at the beginning of every season, but it can be changed. That's certainly my opinion.
Gotcha.
So I don't have the 100%, but that was my impression when all that was happening. I asked the people, what the heck has happened here? And the impression was essentially that the list had not been updated with Central Registry, and that obviously Anaheim was on it. So. Your list is not a static thing. That's the other thing. But like, go back 10 years, right? Look at what Trevor Linden and Jim Benning love to talk about. Look what we were left with. But it's like, you moved all those contracts. Like, Jason Garrison ended up getting traded. Like, all these guys, there were guys on NMCs that got moved. So you can make stuff happen at a certain point. And if it's the Tyler, you're going to be sitting here not playing, what would you rather do? I mean, he might say, listen, I want to be around a team that I think is going to make some moves in the playoffs, and I want to stay here. So the ball's really in his court, I think.
As you said, though, if they can find a way to make moves elsewhere, most notably with Ethan Bear, but even others, I mean, him as your seventh defenseman during a playoff run is very good. It's just, you're right, the cap space does hurt, but in a vacuum, I think him as a seventh is great.
And that's like, realistically, with the cap going up next year, them having to absorb the increase in the OEL, hopefully the increase to Pettersson. Like, if the question is he back next year? I certainly not as a $6 million player. No.
And he's so ingrained to BC now with his place in Cologne and stuff. Like, he might give them a crazy discount. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but we'll see.
Yeah, and like I said, his family, they're very happy here. Like, this was obviously he came to play and came to win, but it helped that this was a place that they were familiar with. This is where he wanted to be. I mean, I think back to that story I wrote at the end of last season when I talked to him and I talked to Miller, and like how much this place mattered. And it's something that does come up. It still is an advantage the Canucks have. Like, Ian Cole talked about it.
And at
He wanted to live.
at 2.5, does he get the fan criticism that he gets right now? I don't know that he does, honestly.
I mean, I think people get credit. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's definitely an element to that for sure, because he was brought in to be the guy, and he was never going to be the guy. And that was once again Jim Benning selling someone to be something that they weren't. But yeah, as a third pairing guy, like think about it. Like, we hadn't talked about him for weeks because he wasn't playing heavy minutes, but he had to play some heavy minutes recently, and it didn't go well.
Yep, has always been the case.
Lastly, for me, a few chinks in the armor of Hughes and Hronek of late, particularly all the goals given up to New Jersey and Hronek's culpability. At some point before they pay him, do you want to see him anchor his own pair?
Yes. I mean, there's two things that I feel when I hear people I mean, like, he is not the player. People want him to be this tough, hard as nails guy in front. He's not that player, right? Like, he's a player that's very aggressive with the puck. He is willing to engage in board battles, but he's not like, he's just not a physical player. Like, he's not a player that dominates physically. So to expect him to be that is unfair. Now, as a result, sure, he gets beat and those things happen. And that's exactly what you're pointing at, Matt. Is like, can you really afford to pay a player who obviously does help you offensively and, has been a fantastic offensive partner for Quinn Hughes? Can you commit to that? I would, yes, in the end. And that, again, this is the Bear factor I think is interesting, because Bear and Hughes, especially once Tocchet and Foote arrived, were such an interesting pairing to go down the stretch. That frees up Hronek and Cole. Like, to me, that it would be a very, very interesting pairing. Just because Cole, not just because it's sort of that you got to play the skill guy with the hard rock. Like, Ian Cole is a very smart hockey player. Like, he knows what he's doing. He can move the puck. He reads things very well. Like, his anticipation and ability to get there is practically second to none. Like, that's something that I think maybe doesn't go appreciated enough, is his ability, the wiring that he has, that quick fire that he goes, I'm going here, and then he's there, and there's no delay. That's what stands out to me. And I think he would be a fascinating partner for a guy like Hronek. And so if you're going to commit to him and say, this guy's going to be part of us for however many years, you need to make sure that he's got some flexibility to his game.
All right, the girls got up on time. They ate breakfast without fuss. Now they're just waiting for Dad to take them to school. On your way with Wallace. Thank you for this, and we will catch up next week, Peach.
Take care, guys.
This great clip brought to you by, wait for it, Great Clips. It's going to be great.